Hello, I'm Genesis Popovici, and I'm going to talk to you about Schindler's List. This is my husband on the camera.
Hello.
And my mom on FaceTime. Okay. So, to begin, Schindler's List is a film that was directed by Steven Spielberg, and it was released in 1993. And the story is of a man called Oskar Schindler. He was a real Nazi officer who lived during World War II, and he is credited with saving the lives of 1,200 Jewish men and women. And he did so by employing them in his factory, and so through employing them, he kept them from having to go into the concentration camps. So that's the storyline that Schindler's List talks about. My thesis for this presentation is that Schindler's List, through the use of imagery from Nazi Germany, portrays themes of police brutality and racial discrimination that resonated with Americans of the early 1990s. Who was Rodney King? For those of you who don't know who he was an African-American young man who was beaten and abused by some members of the Los Angeles Police Department. And through some trials where the policemen were trying to be charged, the jury charged them as not guilty, and this led to a lot of outrage and chaos, and eventually led to what would be known as the Rodney King riots. So that's a little background for you. The first point that I'm going to talk about is the theme of desensitization. This clip that we're about to watch shows an officer basically looking for innocent victims and easy targets. I'm going to go ahead and play the clip, and then I'll talk a little bit more about the desensitization aspect of it. So, as we can see, he is clearly desensitized to the humanity of the people that he's in charge of taking care of. He doesn't care to find a very easy target and just take their lives without giving a second thought. Another woman in a later scene of the film actually is quoted as saying, "There's no set rules that you can live by. You can say to yourself, if I follow these rules, I will be safe." But then she trails off knowing that that's not true, that she could at any moment do something or look at him the wrong way, and that he's going to come and get her too. So there was this sense of just inhumanity, that these people were not people or even considered equal to him. How does this connect to the Rodney King trials, you may ask? Mr. Orrin Harari, in an article entitled "Lessons from the Rodney King Tape," is quoted as saying, "By breaking down the videotape frame by frame and replaying it over and over again, the defense was able to desensitize the jury, who was responsible for saying that the officers were not guilty." And so we see this theme of desensitization, that when you see something over and over again, when you've killed so many Jews, does it even matter anymore? When you've seen the video of this same man getting beaten over and over again, does it make the same effect anymore? It desensitized the jury, and that led to the officers being proclaimed as innocent, when in reality, even the video footage shows that they were not. So going on to the next clip that I have, in this scene, there are officers, and they are very clearly portrayed as villains against this man who is making door hinges. I'll go ahead and play the clip, and then we'll talk about it.
Yugoslavia, Commandant.
I've got to make room. Make me a hinge.
Yes, sir.
You're doing well. Oh, that's very good. But I'm a bit confused, and perhaps you can help me. What I don't understand is that you've been working since, I think, what, about 6 this morning? Yet, such a small pile of hinges. Oh, Christ.
That's
Check the angle lever, maybe it's bent.
no. When you click it, was the angle of it the pin?
Maybe it's the pin. Maybe the pin shaft is greasy.
What did I just say? Yeah.
Herr Commandant,
Let me see.
I beg to report that my heap of hinges was so unsatisfactory because the machines were being recalibrated this morning. I was put on to shoveling coal.
Alright, so as you can see, the officers were, in a position where they were surrounding the man. He was defenseless. He, had done nothing wrong. He obviously had a reason for not having all those hinges made, but they, being in the position of authority that they were in, allowed that authority to get to their heads, and they, as a result, were taking advantage of him and taking advantage of their power over him. And as we can see, also the officers are clearly the bad guys. They're clearly the villains. So going back to the Rodney King trials, I'm going to read you a quote out of Michael Davis's article, "Do Cops Really Need a Code of Ethics?" He says, "King lay on the ground, bound and motionless. Around him stood 15 uniformed men, most, including the sergeant in command, just looked on. But 3 kicked King again and again or struck him with nightsticks. Their movements not wild like sharks in a frenzy, but precise and deliberate. They seemed to be taking turns." So it's very obvious that you can kind of make the parallels between this scene that we've just seen and the picture that Michael paints for us in his article of how the officers are clearly surrounding this man who is defenseless, can't do anything to defend himself, and yet here they are taking advantage of their authority over him. And so here we see the parallels between the two situations. To conclude, we see how the film depicts the themes and the negative thoughts of the early 90s, and how authorities and police officers might have been seen as villains in certain situations, specifically in the area of the way that they treated minorities. And so to repeat my thesis from earlier, Schindler's List, through the use of imagery from Nazi Germany, portrays themes of police brutality and racial discrimination that resonated with Americans of that time. Thank you for your attention. Again, there's my husband on the camera, and there's my mom.
This kid also made a brief appearance.
Yes. Thank you very much.